On Overdrive today, we bring you an exclusive look at the India-bound Lexus GX 500, taking the gorgeous sights of Kashmir in the first ground-up electric SUV from Mercedes-Benz, and get you a quick feel of the River Indy electric scooter. Hello and welcome to Overdrive. I am Soini Dutt. The Lexus GX 500. I guess you haven't heard of this SUV because Lexus had no plans to bring it down to our shores over the past 14 years. Yes, you heard that right. This SUV has been in production for over a decade, but Lexus India now plans to bring the latest iteration of this SUV down to our shores, which is why they exclusively flew down Rohit to test drive this car in off-road conditions. Here's that story.
This is the Lexus GX, or the grand crossover from Lexus. We are here in Japan to drive this car, primarily on an off-road circuit, because off-roading is now a very big important factor for this particular vehicle. The Lexus GX looks imposing with its big size and luxurious appointments, but you will be astonished at what it can do on and off the road. It is currently available with a 3.5-litre V6, but a hybrid is expected to be added to the lineup soon.
The version that we are driving is the one with the 3.5-litre V6, and it comes with a host of new off-road features that are essentially designed to make driving on these kind of conditions an absolutely easy affair. That's something that we are going to put to the test now.
We have seen plenty of specially designed off-road courses to show off the capabilities of off-road vehicles like these. But this course was made a bit extreme to show that the GX is far more capable than your average four-wheel drive SUV.
So what I have in front of me is a very steep articulation course, and let me tell you, much steeper than the kind of articulation courses that we usually drive back home in India.
The GX uses a traditional rigid rear suspension, but the wheel articulation, which is now extended by 110mm over the older GX, provides excellent traction and capability to tackle such a high degree of undulation. The new GX features Lexus's EKDSS, or Electronic Kinetic Damping Suspension System, which uses electronically controlled stabilizer bars on the front and the rear suspension. Depending on off-road or tarmac driving conditions, the system can unlock or lock these stabilizer bars respectively to either allow extreme wheel articulation on uneven surfaces or keep the vehicle flat, comfortable and sporty on flat or winding roads. With the help of the system, the wheels are able to move more freely and extend further into a pothole or an undulation for better traction. This also reduces the vertical movement of the cabin, and the passengers remain more at ease.
It just feels effortless. So there is a new mode select or a new terrain select system. So all you need to do is just put it in auto and the car literally does everything.
The mode selector is divided into two functions, drive mode and multi-terrain select, or MTS. Simply rotating the knob with the drive mode switch engaged will cycle between the road modes, Eco, Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus, etc., which basically alter the engine and the gearbox responses, suspension behavior and steering feel. Press the MTS switch and the same rotary knob will allow you to cycle between the off-road modes and optimize the off-road hardware for sand, snow, rocks, etc. Depending on the terrain and the incline, you can use these off-road modes with low as well as high range four-wheel drive. Leave it in auto and it will do its own thing pretty intelligently, just like the new Defender, but with a lot more grace despite the big size.
So yes, 3.5-litre V6, it sounds huge, it is big, it's a big powerful motor, but the way the throttle has been designed, you can maintain a light throttle. There's no overwhelming power anywhere, and that's a good thing, because when you're driving off the road you want to be measured with the throttle, right? And it's so easy to articulate that throttle. It's just amazing.
Of course, the terrain select system plays a very important role in this regard too, but it's astonishing how its 350 PS or 650 Newton meters of output can feel so measured and precise. There's also a new 10-speed gearbox to help that cause.
other new bit is the electronic power steering. There is no kickback from the steering. It can be nicely controlled because it's an EPS. So all that massive kickback that you don't get that here. And then because this is a Lexus, the seats are also superbly comfortable. So you are not really going around, getting thrown around in those seats. It's nice, soft cushioning.
You're able to traverse the tricky, undulated terrain, but without the extreme side-to-side movement, head nods or jerks and kickbacks at the wheel. Some may think of this to be undramatic, but most will appreciate the luxury quotient that is attached to it. Speaking of luxury, the GX has a spacious cabin for 4, and the seats are well cushioned and large in size to comfortably ferry its passengers. Massage functions are also available for all the 4 passengers. Dashboard is dominated by a massive 14-inch screen, but there are enough switches to maintain the old-school feel and the ease of use. The instrumentation is all digital too and extremely detailed while being easy to read.
So now the next thing that I'm going to do is engage the DAC crawl mode, and using the mode select switch I can choose at what speeds I want the vehicle to crawl. And the other bit that I'm going to mate this with is the multi-view system that you have. It essentially tells you what obstructions are there at the front axle. You can see all of that on the screen, especially when you are going to climb on some rocky terrain like this, where you may not have enough visibility, you may not have a spotter with you. This system is going to help you out. And I'm going to use the DAC crawl mode. So after that, my legs are off completely. No brakes, no accelerator. I'm only going to use my hands to control the steering, and the vehicle is going to do the rest. I've put it on 1 kmph crawl, which means it is nicely going to crawl on top of these rocks.
Crawl control will distribute torque, brake the necessary wheels, and even keep altering the hydraulic pressure of the brakes to ensure that the wheels with traction will help the vehicle gracefully crawl over slippery terrain like these rocks or even slush and wet pebbles or foliage. And this works both ways, uphill as well as downhill.
So the GX is placed under the LX in terms of the portfolio, in terms of the lining up, and I hope Lexus India is able to bring the GX to India very soon, because this is one serious car and one vehicle that I will certainly recommend if you don't want to stretch all the way to the LX.
If Lexus were to launch the GX in India, it will be priced approximately between 2 to 2.4 crore rupees, and it will go up against the likes of the Toyota Land Cruiser 300, the Range Rover Sport, and also the Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon 400. We'll take a very quick break here on the show, but coming up on the other side, we drive Mercedes-Benz's very first ground-up electric vehicle, the Mercedes EQE. Welcome back, you're watching Overdrive. Just earlier this month, Mercedes-Benz launched their very first ground-up electric vehicle in the country, the Mercedes-Benz EQE. Now this makes it the brand's 5th electric vehicle to be launched in the country, and what better place to enjoy the zero emissions SUV than in the clean and crisp air of Kashmir. Take a look.
You see, if you want a long-range EV at the moment, and a luxurious one at that, the Germans are your best bet. Not the Japs, not the Koreans, not even the Brits. Cars like the Audi Q8 e-tron or the BMW iX are the best all-rounder EVs in that sense. And now they have a new competition. This is the Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV. It's the SUV version of the EQE Saloon, which is unlikely to come to India. Because you see, from an Indian standpoint, the E-Class long wheelbase that is sold to us is unbeatable on comfort. And if you're going to make a green statement instead by going electric, the EQE SUV offers better practicality than its saloon sibling. A much larger boot, easier ingress and egress because SUV, a higher seating point, more legroom, decent knee room and foot space, and excellent seating comfort too. The SUV also gets you the larger hyperscreen, so it gets you more tech compared to the saloon. The CarPlay looks beautiful. It also gets you this big map if you want. If you move to the 360-degree cameras, it gets you a really nice view of the surroundings. And if you don't have such great views to gaze at when you're charging the car maybe, there are also different apps, games,
that you can play on the screen, or you can even watch movies. And because the maps or the GPS takes center stage, it also comes in handy when you're road tripping.
You can't play the games or watch movies on the move though. There are facial recognition cameras inside the car that instantly identify when the driver is looking at the screen and the road for too long. And then all sorts of warnings start coming up.
Now, more tech distinction for the EQE SUV compared to the saloon comes in the form of the twin motor setup. You have one electric motor on each axle. Now, it not only gives you a colossal 858 Newton meters of torque, but it also gives you the electric 4MATIC or the electric all-wheel drive system from Mercedes-Benz. Now, it is more of a safety system, of course. It is safety oriented more than performance. But yes, under acceleration, hard acceleration, it will give you better grip. And when you get it right, the acceleration is very brisk. You can go from 0 to 100 in under 5 seconds. And top speed, since we are on the topic of performance, is restricted to about 210 kilometers an hour. Furthermore, the electric 4MATIC system also gets you the off-road mode. And in the off-road mode, you get a lot of information when you're driving off the road. And like the GLC, you also get the transparent bonnet view, which essentially uses data from the front camera, then stitches it all together, and then tells you of any hurdles that you may have at the front axle. It works only on the move, of course. Now, talking about the off-road mode, it will also make sure that the 4MATIC system or the torque distribution, the brake force distribution, all of that is optimized to ensure that you get good grip when you're going over uneven terrain, or maybe wet foliage like we are right now, or maybe over loose surfaces, etc. Apart from the increased ground clearance that you get for this car compared to the EQE Saloon, you can also raise it even further to go over uneven terrain like this. Now, this is the difference between a born electric platform versus vehicles that are based on existing ICE platforms and then modified to be electric. This one, however, the born electric, manages to get a much better ground clearance. So going over undulated surfaces, deep potholes, tall speed humps, or even just taking off the beaten path, all of that is possible with this car. Much better than what you could have managed with the EQC. In fact, much better than what you can also do with the EQB electric. We've seen with the EQB and the EQS that usually there's only a 8 to 10% difference between the WLTP claimed range versus what we've really got in the Indian driving cycle. However, for this car, I'm guessing it's going to be a slightly higher drop. I'm guessing it could be anywhere between 15 to 20%. A real world range of about 400 to 420 kilometers should be doable with the EQE SUV.
Blame it on the twin motor setup and the always alert 4MATIC system maybe. In fact, that is also the reason why the EQE SUV doesn't quite match the range estimates of the Saloon.
Now, this is a 30 kilowatt charger, but this car also supports 170 kilowatt DC fast charging, meaning that you can take complete advantage of the 180 kilowatt DC fast chargers installed at around 20 Mercedes-Benz dealerships already, and then there are similarly spec'd or comparable fast chargers from Shell, from some other manufacturers, etc. So this car can take advantage of all of that. About 45 minutes of charging with a fast charger will give you enough juice for another long haul, which means that road tripping with the EQE SUV shouldn't be a problem at all.
The EQE SUV has a single-step transmission, and the performance is brisk and enjoyable.
This car also comes with the Airmatic system, the Air Balance system. So essentially that will not only give you an excellent ride quality when you put it in the comfort mode, it will also gauge the number of people that are sitting inside the car, the luggage, etc. It will essentially gauge the load and then automatically set the ride height, automatically set the damping so that you get a comfortable ride, so that all the optimal aerodynamics are also achieved. All that is possible. Now when you do engage sport mode, the powertrain also becomes a lot more responsive. It feels a lot freer. In the comfort or the eco modes, it just feels a bit restrained.
The car climbs inclines briskly too, and typical to an EV, there's never a dearth of power or torque. It's easy to maintain a steady power delivery, and in these narrow winding roads around Gulmarg, the EQE felt easy to maneuver. While the cabin feels roomy and the visibility for all the passengers is quite decent, For the driver, the high dashboard and the wedge shape of the car, which leads to a broad profile for the A-pillars, it can hamper cornering visibility quite often. And this wedge shape is the reason why I'll probably not buy the EQE SUV over the GLE. For me, the ideal EQE SUV would have been the GLE with an electric powertrain, but the designers at Mercedes-Benz think differently. They need the EQE to look more like the EQS. When you disassociate the EQE from its ICE predecessors, then you will see a lot of value from an EV standpoint. You see, it's fully loaded with all the bells and whistles that this platform or this car has to offer. So compared to its global variants, you don't really have to take a long options list. Most of it is right there. And then you add the niceties that the brand brings to you, like excellent service, a really long warranty package, a really good buyback package as well. So when you put it all together, when you combine all these things, the EQE easily becomes the best buy in the segment.
The Mercedes-Benz EQE will go up against the likes of the Audi Q8 e-tron as well as the BMW iX in the luxury electric SUV space. We will take a very short break here on the show, but coming up on the other side, we get you acquainted with what the brand calls the SUV of scooters. Stay with us, you're watching Overdrive. Welcome back, you're watching Overdrive. The latest entrant in the electric two-wheeler space is Bengaluru-based EV startup River. Now, their very first product in the Indian market is called the River India, and it promises not only to be of premium build, but also promises a range of 161 kilometers. Rohit will tell you more.
We are back near the Nandi Hills. The last time I rode here, it was the ultraviolet F77, and now I'm here for another EV startup, the River Indy, a very practical electric scooter that is big, spacious, and good-looking in its own way. It certainly looks quirky and quite unlike anything that we've seen in the EV or the scooter space. But look at the styling, look at the bright colors. You might want to have one. The cute face feels welcoming. There are foot pegs in the front too to maximize floor storage or to get a different riding posture. And when not in use, they're neatly tucked away. There are crash bars at the front and two floating brackets at the rear that you can tie small items to, use as an additional set of grab handles, or mount River's bespoke storage panniers for some scooter touring. The tail section looks quite smart too. In fact, the River does look unique but doesn't try too hard to look outlandish, and I like that approach. The fit and finish is surprisingly good for a first-timer. The shuttle lines are consistent, the quality of paint, the stitching, the tactile feel of the switches. It actually feels a notch better than some of the more established players in the market. The River Indy is a large vehicle that dwarfs the likes of the Ola S1 Pro or the Ather 450. It may look intimidating at first, but get astride and its long length or 140 kg weight seems to disappear even if you are a rider with a small frame. Getting a comfortable seating posture is easy, and the motorcycle-like clip-on bars are within easy reach and don't mess with the knees of taller riders either. The large seat has a good grip and hides tons of storage space underneath. My full-face Arai helmet goes in so easily and still leaves so much more room. And as if that wasn't enough, you also get additional 12 liters of space right here behind the apron. The front compartment can't hold the charging equipment though, but you will need to open this compartment every time you want to open the charging flap, which can get cumbersome. Speaking of charging, the River Indy ships with a 800 watt charger, and charging times for 0 to 100% are between 5 to 6 hours. The instrumentation is fairly easy to read. I like the layout, it's nice and simple. The switches on the instrumentation, however, they are a bit confusing but shouldn't take too long to get used to. Despite the SUV of scooters tagline for the Indy, the ride quality isn't really plush. That is what you would expect with that kind of a tagline, but it isn't. It is more on the firm side. The jolts or the minor undulations in the road, all of that is felt at the handlebars. You will feel it in your arms and wrists. However, the suspension travel is good enough to take on poor road conditions, deep potholes, etc. The suspension travel is quite good in that sense. The forks aren't through and through, yet they offer excellent front-end feel and stability. And contributing further to that are the 14-inch wheels and the MRF tires, which offer excellent stability and grip around corners. Think of this to be an electric maxi scooter that will comfortably ferry you from point A to B with enough space for your shopping and spacious seating for two.
Now there are 3 riding modes: Eco, Ride and Rush. Rush obviously is going to give you all the power that it can. It's going to compromise the range as well. Ride is where you're going to be spending most of the time. Expect about 90 kilometers of real-world riding range is what the company tells us, and I think that should be achievable looking at the kind of onboard estimates that we've got. Now there's the Eco mode as well, which will give you about 50 to 60 kilometers of top speed, which is usually good enough for your city commutes, but overtakes obviously are very dulled in the Eco mode.
The scooter doesn't feel as brisk as the Ather 450X, but has an agreeable performance to go with its practical intent. And that is what I like about the River Indy. It doesn't pretend to be the sportiest, fastest, quickest, or the sickest EV in the market. From its design to its performance, it takes an approach of utility and practicality. And after all, that is exactly what a scooter should be. The only thing that remains to be seen is how soon River is able to set up its sales and service network, and whether the pricing of the scooter remains accessible as well. Anything above Rs 1.6 lakh ex showroom will send it into dangerous territory. So let's hope the price tag remains as sensible as the rest of the scooter.
With that, it's a wrap on this week's edition of Overdrive. But remember, you can stay in touch with the team through our social media platforms, and you can check out our latest updates on Instagram as well. We'll see you next week. Until then, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.